In 1953, a working mother in Ohio could feed her family of 6 breakfast for under 15 cents. No cereal boxes, no drive-through, just 3 ingredients pulled from a pantry the size of a coat closet. Here is what nobody tells you. Number 8 on this list was so filling that coal miners in West Virginia ate it before 12-hour shifts and never touched lunch. Number 3 used a trick that food scientists at Cornell only figured out in 2019. These weren't sad meals. They were engineering. Our grandmothers knew how to turn flour, fat, and faith into something that stuck to your ribs until supper. Before we count down, hit that subscribe button because some of these you are going to want to make tomorrow morning. Let us get into the 25 3-ingredient breakfasts that built a generation. Number 25, milk toast. 3 ingredients, day-old bread, hot milk, and a pat of butter. That was it. Grandma would tear 2 thick slices of bread into a soup bowl, pour scalding milk over the top until it floated, then drop a knob of butter on the surface to melt down through the cracks. A sprinkle of sugar, if the kids were lucky. This was the breakfast you got when you had a fever, when the snow was too deep for school, when payday was still 3 days away. The bread soaked up the milk and turned into something halfway between pudding and porridge. A loaf cost 16 cents in 1953. A quart of milk cost 23 cents. You could feed 4 kids for under a dime each. Mark Twain called it the food of homesickness. Today, people pay $6 for artisan bread pudding at brunch. Grandma was making it before the rooster crowed. Number 24, cornmeal mush. 1 cup of yellow cornmeal, 3 cups of water, and a pinch of salt. Grandma stirred it slowly over a low flame until it thickened into a golden porridge that would hold a spoon upright. It was served hot in a bowl with a splash of milk and a drizzle of molasses when there was any. Or she would pour the leftovers into a loaf pan, chill it overnight, slice it cold the next morning, and fry the slabs in a hot skillet until the edges crisped up brown. 2 breakfasts from 1 batch. A 5-pound bag of cornmeal cost 39 cents and lasted a month. Italian immigrants called it polenta, and now it is on menus for $14 a plate. In 1955 Iowa, it was just Tuesday breakfast. Number 23, sugar toast. Bread, butter, sugar. Grandma slathered butter on a slice of white bread, sprinkled it heavy with white sugar, sometimes a dash of cinnamon if the tin was not empty, and slid it under the broiler for 90 seconds. The sugar melted into the butter and formed this glassy, caramelized crust on top, crackling like a creme brulee when you bit through it. Kids would line up at the toaster oven on Saturday mornings begging for it. A pound of sugar was 11 cents. It cost almost nothing, took 2 minutes, and tasted like a cookie you were allowed to have for breakfast. Pediatricians today would lose their minds. Kids in 1956 ran around outside until dark and never had a cavity their parents could not afford to fix. Number 22, fried bologna and bread. 2 slices of bologna, 2 slices of white bread, a pat of margarine. Grandma would cut a small X in the center of each bologna round so it wouldn't curl up into a bowl in the pan, then fry both slices in margarine until the edges crisped and turned almost black. Slap it between bread. Done. A pound of bologna at the A&P was 39 cents and gave you 8 breakfasts. This was the meal that fed steelworkers in Pittsburgh, mill hands in Carolina, and farm boys in Nebraska. The meat puffed up in the middle like a little brown dome. Kids called it the cowboy breakfast because it looked like a hat. Oscar Mayer built an empire on this sandwich, and it never cost more than a nickel a serving. Number 21, hot water cornbread. Cornmeal, boiling water, bacon grease, that's the whole list. Grandma poured boiling water over a cup of cornmeal and stirred until it formed a thick paste. She scooped it into patties with her hands and dropped them into a screaming hot cast iron skillet, slick with bacon grease. 2 minutes aside, they came out with a crust, like armor, and a soft, steamy middle, eaten hot with a smear of butter or dunked in coffee. This breakfast traveled with sharecroppers, with railroad crews, with anyone who had cornmeal and a fire. It was older than the country itself. A skillet of these would feed 5 people, and the whole thing took 8 minutes from start to finish. No eggs, no milk, no leavening, just heat and patience. Number 20, apple pancake. 1 apple, 1 egg, 2 tablespoons of flour. Grandma would grate a whole apple into a bowl, crack an egg over it, dust it with flour, and stir the whole mess together with a fork. Then she would drop spoonfuls into a buttered skillet and flatten them. They came out like little fritters, lacy and golden at the edges, sweet and tender in the middle. No sugar needed, because the apple did the work. A bushel of apples from the orchard cost $1 in October, and it lasted into March in the cold cellar. This was the breakfast that got kids out the door on school mornings when there was not a drop of syrup in the house. Modern paleo bloggers act like they invented this in 2014. Number 19, coffee soup. This one sounds wrong until you try it. A mug of black coffee, a slice of bread, and a spoonful of sugar. Grandma would tear the bread into a coffee cup, pour hot coffee over it, stir in the sugar, and eat it with a spoon. Italian and French immigrant families brought this over, and it spread through coal country like wildfire. The bread soaked up the coffee and turned into a warm, sweet sludge that woke you up and filled you up at the same time. Coffee was about 79 cents a pound, and a single can lasted a family 2 weeks. This was breakfast for the men headed to the mine at 4 in the morning, when even an egg felt like a luxury. Sounds bizarre. Tastes like a hug. Number 18, goetta. Pinhead oats, sausage scraps, and water. Cincinnati grandmothers built an empire on this one. They would simmer steel-cut oats in water until soft, mix in whatever ground pork the butcher had on sale, season with salt and pepper, then pack the whole thing into a loaf pan and chill it overnight. In the morning, you sliced it like bread and fried the slices in a dry skillet until each side turned a deep mahogany crust. The oats stretched a 1/4 pound of meat into 8 breakfasts. German immigrants invented it. Cincinnati canonized it. You can still buy Gleyer's Goetta in Ohio today, but Grandma's homemade version was crispier, meatier, and cost about 3 cents a slice. Number 17, scrapple and ketchup, cornmeal, pork scraps, and sage. Pennsylvania Dutch grandmothers turned the parts of the pig nobody else wanted into a breakfast loaf that fed half the mid-Atlantic. They simmered pork trimmings until tender, shredded the meat, mixed it back into the cooking liquid with cornmeal and sage, then poured the lot into loaf pans to set. Sliced cold and fried hot in the morning until each piece had a crust you could tap with a fork, served with ketchup or apple butter. A pound of scrapple cost 19 cents and gave you a week of breakfasts. The smell of scrapple frying on a Saturday morning in Lancaster County was the smell of being home. Anthony Bourdain called it the breakfast of champions. He was not joking. If you want a full collection, I made a cookbook with 100 simple meals. Link below. Number 16, banana on toast. Bread, butter, 1 banana. Grandma toasted a slice of white bread, buttered it while it was still hot, then mashed half a banana on top with the back of a fork until it spread like jam. A sprinkle of sugar finished it. Bananas were the cheap, exotic fruit of the 1950s, hauled up from Honduras and sold 5 for a quarter. A whole banana split between 2 kids, half a slice of bread each, and you had a breakfast that felt like dessert. The warm bread softened the banana into something like custard. Elvis ate his with peanut butter and bacon and got famous for it. Grandma was doing it first, with nothing but a fork and a toaster, and she fed the whole block on a quarter. Number 15, hoe cakes. Cornmeal, water, salt. Slaves taught their masters how to make these, and the recipe traveled north with the Great Migration into every kitchen in America. 3 ingredients were mixed into a batter, the consistency of pancake mix, then dropped onto a greased griddle in spoonfuls and flipped once. They came out crisp at the edges, soft in the middle, and you ate them with whatever you had. Butter, sorghum, bacon grease, cane syrup. A bag of cornmeal made 40 hoe cakes. George Washington ate these for breakfast every single day at Mount Vernon, drowned in butter and honey. In 1954, Alabama, a grandma could feed 8 grandkids hoe cakes and have change left from a nickel. Number 14, egg in a basket. 1 slice of bread, 1 egg, 1 pat of butter. Grandma cut a circle out of the middle of the bread with a juice glass, dropped both the bread and the cut-out circle into a hot buttered skillet, cracked an egg into the hole, and let it cook until the white set and the yolk stayed runny. Flip once, 2 minutes. The bread toasted on both sides while the egg cooked into the middle, sealing them together into one perfect bite. Some families called it toad in the hole. Some called it bird's nest. Some called it gas house eggs. Andy Griffith ate one in a movie, and the whole country tried it the next morning. A dozen eggs cost 60 cents and lasted a week. Number 13, creamed beef on toast. Dried beef, milk, flour. The military called it SOS, and every veteran who came home from the war taught his wife how to make it. Grandma would tear up a jar of dried chipped beef into a pan of milk thickened with a tablespoon of flour, stir until it bubbled, and ladle the salty, creamy mess over toast. A jar of Armour dried beef cost 29 cents and made breakfast for 4. The beef rehydrated in the milk and turned tender. The sauce clung to the toast, and the salt woke you up like a slap. Veterans loved it. Wives learned to love it. Kids ate it twice a week and never complained because there was nothing else. Hotel brunches charge $18 for it now and call it bistro style. Number 12, sweet potato in milk. This one was discouraged by home economics teachers in the 1960s who told women it was lazy and old-fashioned. They were wrong, and the trick still works better than half the breakfasts on Pinterest. Grandma would boil a sweet potato the night before, peel it, slice it into a bowl in the morning, and pour cold milk over it with a spoonful of sugar. 3 ingredients. That's it. The cold milk turned the warm potato flesh into something almost like ice cream. Southern grandmothers fed this to children who would not eat anything else. A sweet potato cost 2 cents. The starch and the milk together kept a kid full until noon. Modern nutritionists discovered the same combination in 2018 and called it a recovery meal for athletes. Grandma called it Tuesday. Pattern break. Now here is where it gets interesting. Number 11 is the breakfast that the Quaker Oats Company spent millions trying to replace. Number 11, oatmeal with bacon grease. A cup of rolled oats, 2 cups of water, a spoonful of bacon grease from the jar on the stove. Grandma stirred this together in a pot until thick, salted it, and served it in a bowl. No sugar, no milk, no fruit. Just savory pork-flavored oats that tasted like a stew you could eat with a spoon. Farmhands ate it before sunrise and did not see the kitchen again until dark. The bacon grease added fat and calories that turned a thin porridge into a working man's meal. Quaker Oats ran a campaign in 1962 telling housewives to switch to instant oatmeal with brown sugar packets, calling the old way unhealthy. A study from the University of Sydney in 2017 found that adding saturated fat to whole grains slows digestion and keeps blood sugar stable for hours. Grandma was running a metabolism experiment and did not know it. Number 10. Buttermilk biscuits, drop style. 3 ingredients: self-rising flour, buttermilk, and lard. 2 cups of flour, 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk, and a heaping spoon of lard cut in with a fork. Drop the dough in lumps onto a hot pan and bake for 12 minutes. No rolling, no cutting, no fuss. They came out craggy and golden, with a crisp bottom and a fluffy middle that pulled apart in steaming layers. Grandma made a dozen before sunrise, and they disappeared by 7:15. A 5-pound bag of self-rising flour cost 49 cents. Buttermilk was a nickel a quart. Lard came free if you rendered it from the Sunday roast. Southern families lived on these biscuits, splitting them open and stuffing them with whatever was on hand: sausage, jam, sorghum, or just butter and a hot cup of coffee. Number 9. Cinnamon milk. Hot milk, sugar, and a stick of cinnamon. Grandma would bring a saucepan of milk to a steam, drop in a cinnamon stick and a spoon of sugar, and let it sit on the back of the stove for 5 minutes. She poured it into mugs and sipped it with a piece of dry toast. This was breakfast for sick days, for cold mornings, and for the youngest child who could not stomach anything heavier. The cinnamon perfumed the milk, making it smell like a bakery. A stick of cinnamon cost a penny and lasted 3 months because she fished it out and reused it. Mexican grandmothers called it canela caliente and made it the same way. This crossed cultures and kitchens because it worked and it cost almost nothing. Number 8. Hardtack and coffee. Flour, water, salt. The breakfast that won wars, crossed oceans, and fed coal miners through the worst winters of the century. Grandma mixed flour and water into a stiff dough, rolled it thin, scored it into squares, and baked it at a low temperature until each piece was as hard as a roof tile. It would keep for 6 months in a tin. In the morning, the men dunked it in hot black coffee until it softened enough to chew, and the coffee turned into a thin gruel at the bottom of the cup. West Virginia miners ate 2 squares before a 12-hour shift and did not eat again until they came up out of the ground. A pound of flour cost a dime and made 40 pieces. This was the breakfast that built railroads, dug tunnels, and kept the lights on in half the country. Number 7. Apple butter on biscuit. A leftover biscuit, a spoon of apple butter, a slice of cheese. Grandma split the biscuit, smeared 1/2 with thick spiced apple butter from the mason jar in the cellar, laid a slice of yellow cheese on top, and pressed the whole thing together. Sometimes she would warm it on the stove. The salt of the cheese against the sweet, spiced apple was a flavor combination that grandmothers in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Ohio had figured out independently. A jar of homemade apple butter cost nothing because you made it yourself in a copper pot in October. A wedge of rat-trap cheese was 35 cents a pound. This breakfast tasted like the inside of a cider mill and stuck with you until dinner. Number 6. Tomato gravy on toast. A can of tomatoes, a spoon of flour, a pat of butter. Grandma melted the butter, stirred in the flour to make a roux, dumped in a can of crushed tomatoes, and let the whole thing bubble down into a thick orange gravy. Season with salt and pepper, then ladle it over hot buttered toast. This was Appalachian breakfast in its purest form. A 16-ounce can of tomatoes cost 12 cents and fed a family of 5. The acid of the tomato cut through the richness of the butter, and the toast soaked up everything. Coal mining wives across Kentucky and Tennessee made this twice a week, and the smell of tomato gravy on a winter morning was the smell of home for a whole generation. It's almost impossible to find on a menu today, and it's better than half the brunches in Brooklyn. Pattern break. Here is where the food companies started rewriting history. Number 5 is the breakfast that General Mills paid public relations firms to make us forget. Number 5. Hot cereal with butter and salt. Hot cream of wheat with butter and salt. Cream of wheat, water, butter. 3 ingredients. Grandma boiled water, whisked in the cereal, cooked it for 2 minutes, and topped each bowl with a generous pat of butter and a pinch of salt. No sugar, no milk, just the savory creaminess of wheat and butter that tasted like the inside of a fresh roll. A box of cream of wheat cost 23 cents and made 20 bowls. Then, in the late 1960s, breakfast cereal companies launched a coordinated campaign telling mothers that hot cereal was old-fashioned and that cold, sugary cereals were modern and scientific. They hired Madison Avenue firms. They sponsored Saturday morning cartoons. They built a billion-dollar industry on the ashes of the hot cereal pot. We threw away a breakfast that cost a nickel and replaced it with one that costs $5 and leaves you hungry by 10. Number 4. Fried potatoes with onion. A potato, half an onion, a spoonful of bacon grease. Grandma sliced a cold, leftover boiled potato into rounds, threw it into a hot skillet with diced onion and bacon grease, and let it sit there until the bottom turned a deep, crusty brown. Flipped once, salt and pepper. That was breakfast. The onions caramelized into the potato, the grease turned everything golden, and the smell pulled every kid in the house out of bed. A 5-pound bag of potatoes was 29 cents. An onion was a penny. A grandmother who knew how to handle a cast iron skillet could turn yesterday's leftovers into a breakfast that tasted better than anything you could buy. This was the meal that built the American breakfast diner, and the diners learned it from Grandma. Number 3. Pancakes with 3 ingredients: self-rising flour, an egg, a cup of milk. That was the whole pancake. No sugar, no oil, no vanilla. Grandma would stir the 3 together until just barely combined, lumps and all, and ladle the batter onto a hot, greased griddle. 2 minutes aside. 12 pancakes from one bowl, served with whatever was around. Molasses, jam, syrup, butter, or just sugar sprinkled on top. Here is the wild part. Food scientists at Cornell published a paper in 2019 showing that minimal ingredient pancake batters with no added fat develop a better gluten structure when left lumpy, producing a more tender crumb than premium recipes. Grandma never stirred until smooth. She knew lumps meant tender. She did not know the chemistry. She just knew the result. A whole stack of pancakes cost about 8 cents to make and fed 4 kids until lunch. Number 2. Egg in coffee cup. 1 egg, 1 slice of bread, and salt. Grandma cracked an egg into a coffee cup, added a pinch of salt, set the cup in a pan of simmering water, and let the egg poach inside the cup for 4 minutes while she toasted a slice of bread. When the egg was set, she tipped it onto the toast, and the soft yolk broke and ran down into the bread. 2 minutes of work. 1 pan to wash. The cleanest, simplest, most elegant breakfast in the country, served in 1,000 farmhouses every morning. A dozen eggs cost 60 cents. A loaf of bread cost 18 cents. You could eat this every day for a week for under $1. Today's brunch menus call this a deconstructed Eggs Benedict and charge $16. Grandma did it in a coffee cup over the hot water she was using for her percolator anyway. I made one simple cookbook with 100 great meals. The link is below. Number 1. Biscuits and milk gravy. A leftover biscuit, a tablespoon of flour, a cup of milk. The greatest poor man's breakfast in American history, and it ruled every kitchen from West Virginia to East Texas. Grandma would melt a spoonful of bacon grease in the same skillet she'd used the night before. Stir in flour to make a roux. Pour in milk and whisk until it thickened into a rich, peppery gravy you could stand a spoon in. Split the leftover biscuits, ladle the gravy over the top, and watch a family of 7 go silent for 10 minutes. A sausage gravy needed sausage. A milk gravy needed nothing but flour, fat, and milk, which every kitchen had. This was the breakfast that fed cotton pickers, oil workers, factory hands, and Sunday school classes from Birmingham to Bakersfield. It cost about 4 cents a serving. It stuck with you until 2 in the afternoon. And here's the thing nobody tells you. The trick was using bacon grease that had been sitting in the can on the stove all week, picking up flavor from every breakfast that came before it. Each morning's gravy tasted a little richer because it carried the memory of every meal Grandma had cooked that month. You can't buy that. You can't manufacture it. You can only earn it one skillet at a time. So here is my challenge. Pick one of these and make it tomorrow morning. Just one. Make the cinnamon milk for your kid. Make the egg in a basket for yourself. Make the tomato gravy on toast if you are feeling brave. Tell me in the comments which one your grandma made, because I guarantee at least 3 of these were on her table and you forgot until right now. Subscribe if you want more of these. Your grandma knew. Now you know too.